an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering One Piece, episodes 107 and 108. In these episodes, Crocodile and Vivi face off in a manner of speaking. When I say that, it sounds like they fight. Vivi tries to make it a fight. Spoiler, it's not really a fight. And Sanji attempts to come to the rescue. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Gabriela for commissioning this episode. Gabriela, how you doing, girl? So, these two episodes were actually, really gripping. I found myself just being like, what? Oh my God. And I am extremely interested to see how everybody gets out of this, because there are so many balls in the air right now, and there are so many little pieces that have to be addressed to be wrapped up so that we get closure in that one area and can move on to another. And I don't know how we pull that off. So I'm just really curious about where this all winds up going in the end. So the first of the two is Operation Utopia commences. The swell of rebellion stirs. And we get some flashbacks in Yuba. And we are... I felt so bad for Koza here. Yuba is suffering. This is the beginning of when the drought has started. And Koza is getting really impatient with his father, who keeps saying, you know what the king is like, and you know him better than to think that he would be letting us down on purpose, or essentially wanting him to keep faith. And a lot of this show is about having faith in people and continuing to believe in people. And it's a really tricky thing. I was talking about this with my friend the other day. Her name is Karen, and she was working with this broker to do some sales of some things for her. And she found out that he was being really shady on some of it. And she felt a little stupid because she didn't catch on to it sooner. And she was frustrated by the fact that she had trusted this guy and was sort of doing that thing that we all do when we realize that we've been scammed, and we get mad at ourselves for being so trusting. And it's something that I've recently grown to... I won't say I've come to peace on it, but I found a place that makes me feel a little bit better about it. There's, a lot of people who don't like to give money to people on the street because who knows what that money's actually for. They're lying to you, whatever. And I've always been of the mind that, if they're lying to me, that's their business. I can only control what I am choosing to do. And what I am choosing to do is help this person because I can. And I'm not going to make any assumptions about what they're going to do. As soon as this money's out of my hand, that's it. And what they choose to do is their business. I understand not wanting to just throw your money away, of course, but there are times where that's not really what it's about. It's about the trust issue. And I feel like to a point, you just have to hope for the best and let it go, right? I understand that you can't control everything. So in some respects, I find myself wanting to agree with his father, like, you know, having faith and this guy, because it's like a whole different energy when it's somebody that you actually know. And at the same time, I'm struggling to sort of like rectify I'm trying to reconcile. Rectify is the wrong word. Reconcile how I feel about doing my best and letting go of it with this sort of like trust your elders or trust your superiors that they have your best interest in mind here. Because I understand that since they do know him, it's meant more to be like, he's our friend. You've met him. He's always done right by us. Don't think the worst of him because you know better than that. But as I've like gotten older, I've only gotten more and more communist, basically. And so I'm at a point now where it's like anybody in monarchy I'm not going to trust inherently, and I don't buy it. And honestly, this feeling that I was having at the start of this episode is not helped by Koza's visit to the king. Koza is essentially like, we have people that they are thirsting to death. They are starving to death because we can't grow things. Your inaction is killing people. Just use a little bit of the dust and we'll be able to, the dance powder. And even though, you know, I know that, because he says something about the king basically is like, if I use any, it's going to make things worse in the end. And I understand what he means in, sorry, I got an interruption on my old Netflix. I understand what he means in long term, and I respect that he is trying to keep the long game in mind, because that's what a good ruler should do. But he says something like, just wait for natural rain. And I'm like, I can understand Koza just being absolutely disgusted at this point. The man has a tool at his disposal that he could use to mitigate in the immediate future the deaths, inevitable deaths, it sounds like, based on the way Koza's talking, of a huge number of people. And he's choosing not to because, in his words, dance powder summons misfortune. I mean, it doesn't really hold up, does it? It'd be one thing. We know the way that using dance powder actually like pulls the rain from another area that should have been getting it. So we're aware that there are long-term effects to its use. And I'm not certain how much the king knows that, or if the way he says summons misfortune, it sounds more like, it sounds almost superstitious, you know? But in any case, the way that he's like framing this argument is not persuasive, and it doesn't sound as if he cares. And what's frustrating for me is knowing that, like, a few episodes ago, there are people who show up and they're just like, you know, the equivalent of pounding on his front door going, hey, what the fuck, king? My baby's dying. We have nothing to eat or drink where we're from. And he agrees to let them stay in the capital because they are right to hold him responsible. I wanted some suggestion here of that kind of move from the king. I wanted him to create any plan of action for dealing with this. And instead, it's just wait for rain. King, I mean, this is what's so frustrating about this storyline for me. Overall, I'm really enjoying this storyline. But what it keeps coming back to for me is that while Vivi and her father are good, decent people who mean well, they are not good rulers. It doesn't feel like they understand the people that they're talking to or understand how immediate the threat is And it's just all, I don't know. It just feels like they're so far removed from everything. And I can't help but be like, yeah, well, it makes sense now why Koza would just kind of be like, you know what, fuck this. His father is trying to keep the faith even now. He's out here digging for water in a place that's been completely destroyed and abandoned by literally everybody but him. And there just comes a point where you need to like move on and take care of yourself. I'm so frustrated by this whole thing, but that's part of what makes it a good story, because you want the people who are rebelling to have a good reason for doing so. You want them to feel sympathetic. It wouldn't be any good if they all took to the streets with flaming torches and pitchforks and you were just like, really, guys, this is what makes you... They essentially have held off for quite a while, considering how bad everything is. And what finally motivates them is apparently the king showing up on the street and telling them, yeah, I did that shit. They've been fairly patient, if we're being completely fair about it. So yeah, this is when one of the advisors shows up and is like, hey, the king is missing. And this guy, I'm trying to remember, because the guy who could fly, the Birdman, was called Pell, right? I'm trying to remember what this dude's name is. But they're like, yeah, we can't find the king. He has completely disappeared. And his name is Chaka. Okay. It turns out that Mr. 2 is out here impersonating him. And it was a great little like giveaway, because you know that Kobra doesn't like, he would never. But initially I didn't get it until he says, and as your queen, I mean king. And I was like, oh, okay. Okay. That's pretty good. But I don't know where they're keeping the actual king. I'm very curious, because they certainly haven't just killed him. They've got to be keeping him hostage somewhere. And I don't think that we know anything about that by the end of this pair of episodes, actually, now that I think about it. So yeah, they come to tell Chaka that the king is missing, and he is just like, but security was super tight. How could that possibly be? And I am wondering exactly how they did get in. I'm assuming it's just because we've got people with devil fruit powers and they can essentially do whatever they want. There's also the fact that like Mr. 2 can turn into anybody. So he could turn into Chaka and walk up to them and tell them to walk the fuck away. Although he would have had to touch Chaka. I'm not sure he's done that. So anyway, he is just really like, Chaka is trying his best and he is feeling very lost here. And there's a lot of like pressure on him. And honestly, for somebody that we haven't seen that much in this show, I mean, we've only met him, like in the last section or maybe the one before. Chaka has been like, I don't know. I've grown like sort of a fondness for him. And I feel for him in this moment of just wanting to do the right thing and genuinely not knowing what that is. That's the worst, right? You don't want to harm anybody. You don't want to ask anything unreasonable, but you're not really sure what's reasonable in a case that's full of unexpected eventualities that you hadn't planned for. The king just disappearing, maybe the king dying, you know what you would do, or the king being threatened, but him just like vanishing off the face of the earth, apparently. Maybe they just don't have a contingency plan for that. So we go then to Crocodile. And, we have a lot of, again, and this is just a way that this show works. A lot of filler, staring, grumbling, posturing, and Vivi here is the one that's going back and forth the most with Crocodile. he says that the king isn't even worth killing. I'm going to let Kobra taste humiliation far crueler than death. And he doesn't say specifically what that is, I don't think, but we know that it's just essentially, I'm going to ruin his legacy. I'm going to like frame him for this awful humanitarian crime. And he's going to either vanish or I don't know what. Maybe they're going to do something to Vivi, but either way, it definitely will be paired with misleading everybody about who he was as a person. So then he tells her, all right, fine, I'll tell you my plan. Since it's already underway in the first place. And this is when Chaka has somebody coming up to him saying, the king is in Nanohana. And we get to see the king allegedly showing up in this town and telling them all that, yeah, I stole the water. I'm here to apologize. But I'm also going to burn this place to the ground. Which is amazing. Like, honestly, I don't know why this was so funny to me. I think what got to me the most, honestly, is that this feels like something somebody might actually do. They're obviously setting it up this way in this case to make him look as bad as possible. But somebody showing up to basically like apologize in a way that's incredibly insincere and then do even more harm in the end, that just feels like true, you know? So there was something in me that was very cynical, that was sort of laughing at this, just like, oh my God, actually, like I could see something like this going down. And the person being like, hey, I'm really sorry for the fact that I'm burning the place down. Can't you forgive me? While they're like, you know, setting a torch to somebody's roof. And all of these people are just like, how can you literally stand there and tell us this and not give a shit? And as they're in the midst of this little kid comes up. The one that was talking to Koza earlier. Koza, right? God, guys, I don't know why I have such a mental block with his name. And he had been trying to get Koza to let him fight. And Koza wouldn't let him. And this little kid is like, oh, so it is you. You are the problem. And he winds up standing there in the alley after getting like laid out on his ass. And sees the moment where Mr. 2 transforms back into himself. And it's a really like... It was one of those things where I was simultaneously really relieved on the one hand because somebody saw it and it was like, okay, if they had been told this is just a person who can transform into other people, folks might not have believed that. But if they have somebody with their, you know, in their crew, if one of the commoners who has seen it with their own eyes, then yeah, that's something that I definitely am feeling will save the day. And it's almost immediately undercut because he gets caught by, is it Mr. 1? I think it's Mr. 1 and Ms. What is her name? Ten Fingers? Butterfingers? I can't remember her name. I will say, though, that the animation of this woman is so hilarious to me. She is drawn so as to look like she's only wiggling in place side to side. Complete with the fact that she's wearing essentially like a dominatrix outfit. I cannot, you guys. And she's got this like short little fur jacket on, and she walks up with her afro and her little jacket, this like body harness, low slung pants, and she's like got her one leg is like crossing in front of the other, like she's on a runway, but it's way more extreme. It looks like a joke. And she's smoking a pipe. Somehow I don't feel like it registered with me that it was a pipe. I thought it was a cigarette, because that's always the thing. A sexy lady smokes a long cigarette. But no, it's a little pipe. It's not little. It's very long, but nevertheless, unexpected. But yeah, her whole look is so funny to me. I cannot. She has this like waist that is so tiny as to be impossible. Genuinely impossible. It's pretty good. Before I get to this though, where this kid gets basically taken out of commission, a ship lands in Nanohana. And it's so amusing because, I mean, look, I'm not mad at them for not suspecting foul play in general. Everything looks like it's really bad. As far as they are concerned, all of these, rebel soldiers, they all literally saw the king come in here and confess to the thing. So I cannot blame them for taking that at face value. However, they don't want to get into this fight because they don't have enough weapons. And then a ship full of weapons just happens to crash into the town where they just had a showdown with the king. And nobody thinks that's weird. Somebody says something like, it's almost like it was fated. I think that was actually Koza who said that. And other than that, nobody stops and is kind of like, that is sort of weird. Huh. I wonder how, I don't know, is that suspicious? And I guess it is a little bit more in human nature to suspect a divine intervention or, it's a sign, we're being told to do this, but practically speaking, it is funny to me that not a single soul seems to be like, that's sort of weird. It would even be if somebody expressed a little bit of skepticism over the likelihood of this and then they went along with it anyway, that would be fine. They don't have to see this as irrefutable proof something's not right and dig their heels in and refuse to participate. But I would just like one person to sort of go, that feels extremely convenient. However, this ship crashing here, not only is it full of weapons, but it causes a bunch of fires. So everybody in the town is trying to put these fires out. And it also the fires are being set by the alleged king's people who are actually billions, I guess. And guys, Mr. 2 is fleeing the scene with this bent-toed ballerina run. I love it so much. And I love this kid saying the king turned into a weird ballerina. I mean, I guess that's the best way to say it, but I feel like if I were in that kid's shoes, I wouldn't even have used the word ballerina. I would just be like, what the fuck? Mr. 2 is the absolute MVP. I love him so much. He, at a later date, he's with Mr. 1 and Miss whatever fingers, and I can't remember her name. And he says something about how you two are no fun. Why does somebody who's as much fun as me have to work with such unfun people? And I was like, yeah, you are correct to ask that question. You are 100% correct. Usually when somebody is like, I'm fun and you're not, what's your problem? It's because they suck and they're trying to pretend that their bad behavior is just them being charming or it's a joke or whatever. But Mr. 2 is genuinely a delight. And these other two are such a bore and they suck. And I'm so tired of them. I love him turning into the other guy and then mocking him with his own face. That feels extremely effective for somebody who takes themselves as seriously as Mr. One probably definitely does. So I really like the idea of that, actually, just being like, I'm bored and want to irritate you. Let me just turn into you for a second and do some really annoying shit. So this kid who saw him transform back into himself, he is like, oh, he was a fake. Everybody's has been tricked. I've got to tell somebody. And he turns around and he runs right into Mr. One and Miss What's-Her-Face. And guys, the dominatrix thing, they're really playing into this because the way the camera pans up slowly from her like hip hugger pants over her weird strappy torso. And then the dialogue is, oh, what a naughty boy. And I was just like, oh my God. Come on. You gotta admit, that was purposeful. And both of them are irritated with Mr. Two because he was sloppy, transforming back into himself in the middle of the street like this. Absolutely unacceptable. He should not have done that. Very unprofessional. I will say it's shocking that only this one kid spotted it. But Mr. One says to the child something like, I guess it's probably unlikely that you wouldn't say anything just because we told you not to, right? And he says that. But then we cut to the kid walking bloodied out of the alley. And he's not, like, he hasn't been killed. He's just bloody. And he's still trying to say, it's not what you think, everyone's been tricked. But it's all in his head. He can't talk because he's, like, so injured. I couldn't tell if he was, like, actually dying. Because there's a moment when Koza reaches down to his face in a way that looks like he's closing the kid's eyes. The way that you would close somebody, you know what I mean? Like if they had just died in front of you. And so I was trying to figure out, did they like just beat this kid up enough that he was able to like walk away from it, but he died of his wounds? Or did he just pass out and the way that Koza's hand was positioned is purely coincidental? Or what? Because I just couldn't quite tell how. And what I want to know is it possible for this kid to wake up and inform our people? Or is this meant to be a tragic moment of like, oh, we almost got saved. They almost got the information they needed. And he was cut off right before he was able to actually tell them. I feel like the way that this show tends to go, that probably this kid will wind up being okay and be able to tell them, but it will be like, you know, the 11th hour before he's able to do it. But I mean, this show has done surprisingly like, dark doesn't feel like the right word really, but I can't think of a better one. The show has done surprisingly dark things here and there. Maybe they would just be like, yeah, this kid's dead now. Probably he's going to be fine though, right? So this is when the rebels are all like, oh, hey, yeah, so that ship that crashed was full of weapons, so I guess we can get this rebellion on the road after all. And then back at the palace, Chaka is being given the news about how the rebellion is like popping off and what do you want us to do? And he essentially is just like, I've got to step up. We've got to fight these folks. And that is what Crocodile is so delighted to throw in Vivi's face. Do you know, like, everybody's going at each other's throats. And do you know what they're all thinking? Protect Alabasta. Protect Alabasta. The love that they have for this country is what's going to tear it apart. And that is, honestly, that's a really good line. I really this is an effective plan. I don't understand his motivations behind it, though. Like, he says something to her at one point, you know, the people I look down on the most, it's the ones who like just bleat these sort of empty platitudes about the happiness of the people. And when he said that, it felt like that was really personal. Like somebody did something to him where he felt sidelined or lied to or, you know, placated in a way that was like really false, like maybe by some politician, and then was abandoned. But we still don't actually have that information. All we know about him is that he like wants to cause suffering and is delighted by this like destruction. And otherwise, I don't know of anything. I don't really, I still don't get what is in it for him other than taking this place over. But it seems like if you've got everybody at each other's throats, the place you're going to take over is going to be destroyed. Most of the population is going to be dead. The buildings are going to be gutted. Like, what is there to take over if you have reached this point? And Crocodile hasn't even really mentioned wanting to rule. It doesn't feel like taking the country over is even what he wants to do. It's like always that he's more focused on just destroying it, but not actual, you know what I mean? So I'm not sure what he's going for here. So at this point, both Luffy and Vivi are like absolutely flipping out because this guy is such a monster. And Vivi literally like throws herself still tied up onto the floor and is like wiggling like a worm across the floor, saying that she isn't going to give up as long as there is still a chance. And poor Luffy, who keeps forgetting about the like metal that these prison bars are made out of, he keeps grabbing them, being like, I'm going to kick your ass. And then he winds up being completely like taken down. So it ends with them like sort of yelling to one another that they're going to kick Crocodile's ass. And then we start the next episode and the rebel army is approaching the palace. The rebel army is really funny to me because they're all wearing like the exact same type of headdress so that you know exactly who they are. I mean, why not? Sure. I'm sure it's very cheap. And the like battle is about to break out any second, essentially. And then we go back inside and Luffy is being taunted with the key to the cell, which Crocodile dangles in front of him, and then he drops it right onto the opening for the trap door where the banana gators are. Now, I have a question for you all. This mostly works because Luffy is an idiot, right? But I'm curious about what if Luffy wasn't an idiot, and I don't know if this would make a difference. The properties of the metal that these bars are made out of, is it just being around them that is disempowering? Depowering? How would one say that? Or do you have to be physically touching them? Because what I want to know, basically, is if Luffy let go of the bars, again, this is all on the assumption that Luffy is, like, you know, intelligent and rational. If Luffy were to let go of the bars and back away from them, would he be able to use his stretchy powers within the confines of that cell so long as he wasn't touching the metal itself? Or is being enclosed in the metal completely preventing the power from being used in any way? I'm assuming it's the latter. But that implies that the metal doesn't actually have to be touching you to be effective, which that's pretty powerful. So, because like when Crocodile comes up to the cage and he has the key and he dangles it out for a moment, you know, he's obviously doing all of this so as to just be a dickhead. He is so close to that cage when he holds it out that if Luffy were able to stretch without touching the metal, he probably could have grabbed it. Again, I know that it could be either he can't because of the way the metal works, or he's just not smart enough to like think it through. And he keeps touching the damn bars, which keeps bringing his power levels back down. But I'm just curious if it would have been possible with some caution and some, you know, being thoughtful about it. So essentially what it is that Crocodile is trying to do to Vivi is force her to choose between this group of people that she's grown close to, who in her words have never let her down, or to go and stop the rebellion. And either way, she's going to have to give up one group of people, because he also like makes it so that the place is flooding from the aquarium tanks. So if they get left alone, they are going to slowly wind up being drowned, and the whole building is going to wind up destroyed. So thankfully, Vivi eventually comes to the conclusion that either way, he is not going to let her do either one. Like, he isn't going to let her stop the rebellion, and he certainly wouldn't let her friends out, because that is extremely dangerous. These people are no joke. But it takes a while before she sort of decides that she's not going to play along, because, you know, you kind of have to, I guess, for something like this, right? You have to have the game play for a little bit and make it seem as if it's something real. And in the meantime, one of the banana gators crawls out and eats the key. And I am just loving the banana gators are such a weird idea. I'm super curious where this came from. I don't feel like I even noticed that they had the bananas on their heads. I didn't understand the name banana gator. Now in this episode, they're really front and center, those like weird shapes on their heads. And Luffy is watching this like whole thing go down, utterly powerless in this cage, as is wont to happen, right? Every time that we have one of these like major moments, Luffy has to be sidelined somehow. The only difference here is that most of his crew is also sidelined with him. Notable exceptions being Sanji and Chopper. And I will admit, there have been other times where I've forgotten an off-screen character and been like, oh, they're going to do a thing. But this is not... I've been wondering what the hell Sanji and Chopper were up to. So once we finally get them factored into everything, I was very happy. But for now, Luffy is yelling at Vivi, like, you've got to, you know, go to that banana gator and get in there and get the key out. And she's just like, dude, you have obviously never dealt with these things, because they are no fucking joke. They like prey on sea kings. And now that the one who ate the key has gone back into the tank, we can't even say which one of them ate it, because they're all identical and swimming around. Guys, there is this moment between Luffy and Zoro. Zoro says, if you could just get out of here, I could handle those reptiles. And Luffy says, you're so dumb, Zoro. We can't get out because the key got eaten. And Zoro says, I know that. This is one of those moments where in the, because I'm reading, as usual, the subtitles provided, which don't totally match up with what's said in the dub. And the way that those lines are each delivered it just adds an extra something for me. And I have grown to understand so much better the overall, like, low-level simmering frustration that Zoro perpetually has toward Luffy. It is much funnier for me now than it was before. And it was pretty funny before. I mean, we all knew exactly, like, the vibe, but there is something about the dub that, like, gets it across a lot more quickly for me. So Crocodile's like, well, I'm really sorry for accidentally dropping the key. It was so clumsy of me. I guess we'll just have to take off. This room will be destroyed automatically in 1 hour's time. This room is of no use to me now because all of my plans have been successful and we're finally on to the final stage. And then he presents the one last moment to Vivi. Are you going to save like 1 million innocent people or 4 pirates who have no future anyway? And finally, Vivi is like, yeah, you know what? I bet you wouldn't have let me do either one of these things. And guys, okay. This is when he basically tells them that he is the one who caused the sandstorms in Yuba. And I don't know how it never occurred to me until now that the sandstorms were something that he controlled. We saw the way that he attacked the people who he mummified. And it didn't even, like, it looks like a sandstorm when he does it. I'll be honest, when he does it the first time, because we didn't know it was the sand fruit, I thought the sand was a side effect to a sort of wind that was being whipped up. And it being like, you know, just his power is like flying through the air and it's causing a disturbance in the sand. It wasn't clear to me until they flat out said that it was a sand power. So it's not like I've known for long that this is what he can do. But I still really would have thought it would have occurred to me. And it didn't. And let me tell you, Luffy is pissed. This old guy, Luffy, for whatever reason, has like really latched on to this old man as like some sort of, I don't know. It's just, he has a particular fondness for the guy. He still hasn't drunk that water as far as I know. I'm not positive about that. But overall, Luffy reacts in this way that I feel like we don't see this sort of rage from him that often. And I find it kind of enjoyable in a way to see him take something so personally. A lot of times it feels like he'll get into fights with people because it's just, you know, well, here's a bad guy. It's an obstacle in my way. He's hurting people. I'm going to do this thing because I want to stop this person from hurting other people. And it's a very general, I'm the good guy showing up to do the right thing. But this, for some reason, making it so personal to him, having him grown specifically fond of this old man and then finding out that the guy is like back there still trying to dig the place out while Crocodile is essentially like playing a really sadistic prank on him by having caused these sandstorms over and over. Luffy truly is like ready to pop. I was wondering if he was going to be able to break out of this jail anyway. And Vivi, of course, like, she is just screaming at him. So at this point, they're both yelling, Usopp and Luffy are yelling, Vivi, you've got to do something. Get us out of here. And Crocodile and his side piece are walking out, and he is mocking Luffy for begging for his life, which Luffy is like, that's not even what I'm doing. What are you talking about? And he calls Luffy small fry. And Luffy's like, you're the one who's small fry, and you think you're a big shot. And this dude then summons up one of the banana gators and is like, oh, really? Oh, I just think I'm a big shot? I don't know. I've got a giant banana gator here. I feel like I am actually a big shot. So Vivi has to face off with this banana gator. Truly, what a weird fight. Like, this is one of those things. She looks outside, first of all, and realizes that the banana gators have all lined up so that they can one by one fight her, which is like genuinely why would they, what? Okay. Yeah, sure. Fine. It's really funny. And she begins fighting, and because of like the sheer size of this thing compared to Vivi, it's not even really a fight. It's just this thing like batting her around in a way that feels extremely... It's like there's no way to even animate it in a way that's interesting. We just see her go flying, then we see the creature over her with its jaws open, and I was already like a little bit bored by it, I'm not gonna lie, because I was just like, if it's supposed to be suggested to me that Vivi has any shot of killing this massive creature, I'm not gonna believe it. I absolutely will not buy it. So how are they gonna do this? And then, saved by the bell, the phone starts ringing, and it's one of those little snail transponders. And as soon as it started to ring, I was like, oh my god, I think I know who this is. And indeed, it's Sanji, and he has to jog Crocodile's memory as to who he is. And finally, Crocodile puts it together. It's a weird moment where Luffy starts to yell Sanji's name, and Usopp claps a hand over Luffy's mouth and says, don't say anything Crocodile doesn't know about him. What difference would it make if Crocodile knew Sanji's name? Obviously, Sanji is one of their allies, and he's out there. It doesn't matter if he knows Sanji's name. The jig is up in terms of them having somebody on the outside. That's all he really needs to know. Names are not important. It's not as if Sanji's gonna try and flee the scene and can't use his ID now. I thought that was a weird reaction on Usopp's part. I don't get it, but maybe it's supposed to be that Usopp doesn't know what he's talking about either. So there's this whole bit where Sanji is in the middle of telling him, I'm going to figure out how to save my friends, yada yada. And then all of a sudden, it sounds like he gets interrupted by people who are on Crocodile's side. And I don't know about y'all, but I didn't believe that for a second. As soon as it sounds like he's being... I think it's the help, we've been caught. I just didn't buy it. So the fact that he has allegedly been caught and these guards are like, oh yeah, we have him out here, that is the way to draw Crocodile out. Truthfully, it doesn't make a lot of sense that Crocodile would even give a shit to go and see him. But it's fine. It's the best Sanji could come up with. So he's walking out of there, and Vivi tells all the guys in the cage, actually, Nami's there too, all of the people in the cage, we are going to get help. I'm not leaving you guys. I'm not abandoning you, but I do have to go out there and find them. So everybody wait here for me to find help. And she's like climbing up the stairs. And then Crocodile comes in and sends her flying with his sand power as he says, enough of your nonsense. And it looks like she's been completely knocked out. And she's on like a piece of masonry that fell from the ceiling as the flooding begins to start. And I was actually like truly like, oh no, in this moment, because when Crocodile started to walk away, I really thought, all right, so he's been like fully distracted and Vivi is still out here. Like, it just seemed like maybe she was going to be able to go and get help. And the way that he knocks her back here, and how, again, I should have seen it coming, but didn't. I just felt like such a dodo bird. Just kept happening. So he goes out into the main casino area. And we get to see how everybody is falling all over themselves because they love him so much. And I just like keep forgetting how beloved he is because nobody understands what's actually going on here. And the owner of, or the manager of the casino, he's the owner, the manager of the casino is like, oh, did you hear about what happened? And the king's like admitted what he did. And there's about to be fighting starting. And Crocodile is just like, well, I'm not really surprised. And then he says something about how he rarely shows himself inside the casino, which was a weird thing to say. Like, is that meant to insinuate something? I didn't really understand what he was supposedly implying with that. But in any case, Vivi does wake up, and as she is waking up, the glass explodes and all of this water begins pouring in. And that is, I think, what actually woke her up. And she tells them, hang on a little longer. And she heads out there and finds out as she's walking out that she has been cut off from going outside. And I'm trying to remember exactly how that set up, but I know that we have Crocodile on the steps and he's talking to one of his few people that is surviving. He finds out that like Sanji took care of all of these dudes. His side piece is like, oh yeah, like basically every single person that we had as an operative in this entire town is down. And he spots what looks like, you know, allegedly Sanji dodging around a corner because, oh, I've been spotted, and running away. And I was like, yeah, that's not Sanji's style at all. And it turns out that is Chopper, and he's just wearing a little like jacket to draw attention. And he is dodging and dipping to try and distract Crocodile. So, oh, it's the bridge. The bridge into Rain Dinners has collapsed. I forgot that this place has so much water that they have to build a bridge to get into. Good God. Honestly, too, Rain Dinners is such a weird name. Is that just me? Like, it has to be like a weird translation. I'm very curious what the, you know, meaning would be in the original Japanese, but the fact that it's Rain Dinners, it just feels so lazy. So yeah, that's the moment where Vivi is like, oh shit, I'm stuck inside. And she just has that one moment of being like, damn it. And then Sanji steps out and is just like, oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it. This actually is good because it ensures that Crocodile can't come back inside. It's all part of the plan. He's out here just like doing one of those, what do they call the machines that you just like pull on the lever, and smoking a cigarette, honestly looking very much like he belongs in a casino. And he says, can you tell me where they are, princess? And he's got these little yellow glasses that I don't remember him having worn before, but they look extremely similar to the ones that Koza is wearing. And I don't know if that's supposed to be like meaningful in any way, but I was wondering if that's significant. Like, maybe not necessarily that they're the same as Koza's, but where did he even get these glasses? What is the deal with them? Regardless, I don't really like when you see the bridge collapsed into rain dinners. It doesn't look like it would be any particular obstacle for Crocodile or what's her name to come in and out. I feel like if you've got a devil fruit power, you'd probably be able to manage that pretty easily. I don't know. I don't really know how the sand power, like what other capabilities it has, because, you know, turning people into mummies is not something I would have thought you'd be able to do. So I don't know if it does anything for locomotion. Can you lift yourself up on a cloud of sand and travel that way? I don't even remember what the other lady's power even is. The women's names being named after holidays makes them so hard for me to remember. And I don't think that one woman with the fingers, I don't even think that name had anything to do with a holiday. Correct me if I'm wrong. So yeah, that's how the episode ends, is with Sanji just being like, well, we just now have to go down there. You show me where they are and we'll get them out. So I really don't know if the place is flooding and there's so much water here. I feel like the natural thing to do is you create some sort of canal out of here to send all of this wasted water from these tanks into other towns. But it depends on exactly how much water we're supposed to believe is there. And I don't know how simple the solution has to be. I don't really know what direction the show would go in terms of like restoring Alabasta. And I don't think that that's happening in the next 2 episodes. I think we've still got a good amount of fighting. So probably the 2 after that, we might begin to see some resolution. Also, we still don't know where the king is. So very curious about what he's in the midst of doing. All right, I have to wrap up. But thank you again, Gabriela, for commissioning this episode. I hope that you guys are enjoying the coverage. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.